Hello, hello, hello. What happens when you set a boundary and then somebody crosses it? What do you do? Well, we're going to share today a three-part strategy that I believe is foolproof if you follow it exactly as I share it. And we're going to get to it in just one moment. Hello, 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 and welcome to Stress Talk Live. This is the place where we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management, solution focused self care, and grateful living. I'm Marcyline Bailey, and I am your host tonight, and I'm so glad that you joined me. I'm also happy for all of you who watch the replays. Today, we're going to get into a little more detail about boundaries and boundary setting. We talked about boundaries in general last week, talked about different types of boundaries. I told you about the fence, the fences, my concept of boundaries as fences. And I also shared with you the idea of how we can look at boundaries, not just to keep people out and away from us, but look at boundaries in a way that we can be who we want to be and who we need to be and who we are in the world around us. So, today we're going to get into this foolproof three-step boundary strategy. And I think it's going to be quite helpful for you. First of all, as always, I'm going to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to ML Bailey Consultants. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name. Under my name. So also, you're welcome to follow me on LinkedIn as well, or connect. Yeah, just connect with me. Also, go to this tab link. This is where you will also find resources that are helpful, including resources related to boundary setting, books that are related to boundary setting. So go to this tab link. Also, you can sign up for our newsletter as well as download our stress guide, the ultimate stress busting guide. You can get that by going to this link. Last but not least, here is my website. I'd love to see you guys check that out as well. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about saving the day. Yes, we're going to save the day using this foolproof three-step boundary strategy. And I'm going to, I need to move my notes over so I can see them. So I'm not doing, how I do that like I'm watching tennis. Has anybody been watching tennis? I've been watching tennis. I watched a little bit today. Wimbledon is on, and I watched a little bit today. And I do mean a little bit, been doing other things today. So, in any case, let's talk about this foolproof three-step strategy. So, one of the things that I think is really important when we're talking about establishing boundaries, we really need to have a clear idea of the type of boundary that we've set. Remember, I talked about picket fences, those little cute white picket fences that really don't do much. They're more decorative. And you can get some wrought iron fences that are really decorative. They really don't do much. They're just window dressing. They're just there to make things look pretty, right? Then we have functional. I'm calling them functional fences. Those are like your chain link fences. I shared with you that we had a chain link fence at the house that now the home where I grew up in, and it kept our dog in and also kept people out because people knew not to come to the backyard because our dog was back there. He didn't like anybody except for us. We loved that dog. In any case, you can have a chain link fence that's more functional. It's not pretty, and it doesn't keep people from seeing in, it doesn't keep you from seeing out, but it does keep people, animals, or whatever from traversing, not trans, but traversing the property line where the fence is. And then you have your privacy fences, right? Your privacy fence can be made up of wood, which a lot of the fences in the neighborhood in which I live in, we have some privacy fences, and they are made of wood. But you can also have privacy fence made of other things like cinder block or um, or PVC pipe, that kind of material that comes together. You can't see through it. The only way you can see is if you go climb it or go look over it. We also talked about fences and the heights. You can have, like in a picket fence, they tend to be very low, below the waist, or at the very highest, waist height, at the very highest. Or you can have a fence that's 6 feet tall, 8 feet tall, 12 feet tall, or however tall you want it to be. It just depends. The reason I talk about fences is because it helps me to understand boundaries and how they work. And that's why I was sharing them with you. So, the first step is to really have clarity regarding the type of boundary that you have set. Now, one of the things that I noticed, especially in working with people, with women in therapy session, is that we're not always clear about the boundaries that we've set, right? We don't always have we don't always share with other people that we've set a boundary and what that looks like. Partly because I think we don't feel totally comfortable in doing so. We're not always comfortable communicating difficult things. But it is important for us to communicate the boundary to people so that they understand that this is the line you don't cross. Because when they cross it, it helps us to remind them that there is a boundary, that we have set this boundary, and that we've asked them not to cross that boundary. So you might say, well, okay, so how do I do that? How can I tell people that there's a boundary? One of the things that I often suggest is that we use I statements. I statements help us to be assertive in our communication, and it helps us to deliver difficult messages because it takes it helps us to form and formulate our statements more clearly. So with an I statement, there's really four parts. The first step with an I statement is to tell the person tell the person um, what you wanted them to do or what you didn't want them to do, right? Then you can tell them how you feel about it. It makes me uncomfortable. Then you can expand upon that and say, this is how I this is how when you do X, Y, and Z, it makes me feel a certain way, and this is what it does to our relationship, whether that's work, personal, friendship, whatever. And this is what it does. And then you can tell them what you want them to do instead. I'll go into in depth with I statements in another um, live and another Stress Talk live, but I wanted to give you some idea of how you can effectively communicate the boundary that you've set so that in a way that is assertive, not aggressive, and is assertive and not passive, so that people understand what that boundary is, so that if they traverse it, you can let them know and let them know in a way that is comfortable for you. Now, why is it important to tell people about the boundary up front? Well, when you see a sign on a fence, a lot of times it'll say things like, beware of the dog, right? Beware of the dog. It's telling you don't come in the fence because there's a dog that's going to get you. Or it says no trespassing. Because if you I've given you notice that you are not to trespass. If you come beyond this fence, then I have the right to protect my property, or I have the right to do whatever I need to do to get you off this property because I've already told you not to trespass, right? So basically, when you communicate up front what the boundary is, then it tells the person up front, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do these actions that I find offensive or I don't like, right? So the first step is to understand the type of boundary that you've set. Is it a picket fence? Is it a functional fence? Is it a privacy fence? That's important because that determines the level of communication you need to have when you have this discussion. It also determines how vital to your experience this boundary is to you. Picket fence, may not be a big deal. A privacy fence, now that's a big deal. Okay, it gives you some measure. So once you've determined or you have clarity about the boundary that you've set, you want to communicate it to the others so that they're clear about it, so that they have an understanding. Basically, you're going to put up your no trespassing sign or your beware of the dog sign as an example. The next thing you want to do is you want to think about what happens if someone crosses the boundary, and then, or have clarity about that. What generally happens if someone crosses that boundary? And then what is your response? Those are the things that we're going to be talking about today. What happens when someone crosses the boundary? And then what happens? What is your response to that? That's part of understanding the type of boundary you've set. And it's also part of knowing how much you've communicated the boundary. So once you have a clear understanding of that, the second thing is you want to also understand your thoughts, feelings, and your behaviors. And I want to share with you a graphic. This is the cognitive triangle that we, meaning therapists, use. And I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. And this cognitive triangle is very, it's this particular graphic was created by Therapist Aid. And there is, I don't know if you can see the, I think you can. I think you can see the citation at the bottom. But it was created by Therapist Aid. So in cognitive behavioral therapy, we always talk about how our thinking influences our emotions, which in turn influence our behaviors. And it could go vice versa. Our behaviors influence our thoughts, which in turn influence our emotions. Our emotions influence our behaviors, which in turn influence our thoughts. So when we are faced with maintaining boundaries, we want to have an understanding of several things. when we're faced with someone who traverses that boundary, the initial thing that we want to recognize is, what do we think? What are we thinking about the person who traverses that boundary? What are we thinking? Not necessarily about that person. What are we thinking about ourselves related to this person crossing the boundary? We want to know all of those thoughts, because looking at this graphic, we can see that what we're thinking is going to influence how we feel. So we want to have a clear idea of what we're thinking when someone crosses the boundary. Then we want to have clarity regarding our feelings. What emotions are we feeling? Do we feel embarrassed? Do we feel sad? Do we feel angry? Are we experiencing confusion? What emotions? What are those emotions that we're experiencing? And as a result of those emotions, what do we do? What do those emotions lead us to do? Do we cry? Do we throw down a pad or pencil? Do we go into the restroom and we try to get our anger out? What do we do? Do we yell at the person? Do we are we nasty? Are we passive aggressive towards that person? What do we do? This is very important, I think, because I think that's what we generally do. We don't have clarity about what we're thinking, but we are experiencing emotions when someone crosses a boundary that we've set. And those emotions lead us to experience or to act out some behavior that may or may not be good for us, may or may not be in our benefit or towards our benefit. And so the second step of this boundary strategy is to have clarity regarding what we're thinking when someone crosses the boundary, how we feel, meaning the emotions that we're experiencing when someone crosses those boundaries, and then what we do. What are those behaviors that we act out as a result of what we think and what we feel? So we want to keep this triangle, this cognitive triangle, in mind when we are engaging in the second step of our boundary setting, our boundary strategy. Okay. So I've told you the first step, understanding the type of boundaries that you've set. Is it like a picket fence? Is it like a chain link fence? Or is it a privacy fence that you've established? Have you put up signs that say no trespassing, or beware of the dog, or travel at your own risk? You can say that too. Have you communicated to others what the boundary is? And I've told you what we'll do is we'll go over I statements, because that's a great way to communicate difficult things, to talk about difficult things. And we'll talk about I statements in another Stress Talk Live. Then I talked about, under understanding the type of boundary, you want to know what happens when someone, in general, what happens when someone crosses the boundary, and what is your response to that. The next step I shared was understanding your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior. And I shared with you the cognitive triangle, which is used in cognitive behavioral therapy, where we believe that our thoughts influence how we feel, our emotions, and our emotions in turn influence our behaviors. And so it is important for us when someone crosses a boundary, it's important to understand and have clarity regarding how you're feeling, or I'm sorry, how what you're thinking at the moment about their crossing that boundary. Also, how is what you're thinking influencing how you feel? What emotions are you experiencing? And then, as a result of those emotions, what are you doing? What do you do? So it's important to keep the triangle in mind. The next step is practice. Practicing everything we do. A lot of what we talk about here on Stress Talk Live is laying the foundation for your success. And in order to be successful, we have to ensure that what we're doing is habitual. We've created habits where it's just natural for us to take certain actions and to do certain things, and that requires practice. So, we're going to practice, right? We're going to practice right now. So let's say that you have, this is the scenario. I'm going to create quick, um, a quick ticker. You have a Danish pastry at home, and you told your family that you were saving it and that you were going to eat it the next day. The next day, you decide to eat your pastry and your pastry is gone. The next day. Okay? So, what do? You have a Danish pastry. And oops, I have all kinds of things popping up here. Let's get rid of, there we go. Okay, you have a Danish pastry and you told your family about it. You told them you were going to eat it the next day. And the next day, it's gone. Your is gone. Let me see. Your pastry. Let me fix that. Let me fix it. Your pastry. Your pastry is gone the next day. So what happens? Oops, I don't know what happened. I'm trying to, oh, there we go. Okay. All right, here we go. And it's showing. Your pastry is gone. So what happens? First, let's talk about the boundary that you've established. What boundary did you establish? Was it a picket fence boundary where, hey, I have this Danish and I'm going to eat it tomorrow. So make sure I'm going to eat it tomorrow. Or was it functional? I have a Danish. I'm putting it on the counter. I don't want anybody to touch it because I'm going to eat it tomorrow. Or was it a privacy fence? I don't even tell them about the Danish. I put the Danish somewhere else, like in the refrigerator, in a bag with a big sign that says "Do not touch." What kind of boundary did you establish? Now I know I am exaggerating a bit, but I just want to make sure that we have clarity about what I'm talking about. So, what kind of boundary did you really set? The other thing you want to make sure is, did everybody know? Did your daughter hear about it? She was at work. So did she know that the Danish was yours and you were going to eat it the next day? Did anybody else tell her? How was it communicated if she was at work when you told everybody else? Okay. So what type of boundary did you actually establish for your Danish pastry? Okay, so think about that. Let's just say it was a chain link fence boundary. So everybody could see it because it was there. However, there was no sign that said do not touch. There was no sign that said no trespassing. There was no note, anything. It was just there on the counter. And you communicated to everybody except your daughter who was at work and she got home late. Okay. So when you got up and you went to get your Danish, it was not there. And you saw the container in the trash. So what did you think? What was the first thought? Drop it in the comments, you all. Drop that thought in the comments. What did you think? Make it clean. Make it thick, make it clean. Because I probably would not have been so happy. I might have said something like, gosh darn shoot. So what did you think? What was that thought? Chances are when you saw that someone had eaten your Danish, you were thinking, dog, I told them I was going to eat this Danish. Who ate it? What were they thinking? I really wanted that Danish. I am angry. There's an emotion. I am disappointed. There's another emotion. I am ticked off, which is similar to angry, but it's a degree of anger. That's a third emotion. Okay, so we have three emotions. Let's just stop there. We know what you're thinking. We know what you feel. What do you do? What do you do? In general, you would probably, or I'm thinking you might say, who ate my Danish? That's an action, right? You might go to everybody in the house, say, who ate my Danish? I told you all. You're raising the roof a little bit. I told you all I was going to eat the Danish. Who ate my Danish? So you may confront everybody in the house about the Danish. You might also do what? Think, did everybody get the message about the Danish? Think. And you might say, I didn't tell my daughter. She was at work. I didn't leave a note. Okay, so perhaps I need to take a step back before I just ramrod everybody. Taking a step back. Again, this is part of it. What this does, this 3-step boundary strategy does, it helps us to keep our stress levels lower because we're not reacting to situations. We're thinking through situations, and then we're taking appropriate steps. So now that you've decided, hey, I didn't tell everyone, hey, although I'm angry, I am disappointed, I'm ticked off, I need to talk to my daughter to see if she ate the Danish. So you go to your daughter and you say, hey, did you eat the Danish that was on the counter? Yeah, Mom, thank you. I really thank you for getting it. You know that's one of my favorites. And I thought you left it for me because you usually leave things for me. Yes. We go back to that communication piece, right? So hearing that, what you recognize is that her overstepping the boundary was not something that was, although it was intentional, she didn't intend to do harm because you always leave stuff for her anyway. And so she thought it was left for her because it had not been communicated to her not to touch it. So we have our 3-part strategy, and this will save the day for you. And I believe that it's foolproof. We have to practice it though, because if we don't practice it, it'll still be difficult. First, you want to understand the type of boundary that you've set. Is it a picket fence? Is it a chain link fence? Or is it a privacy fence? Second, you want to understand thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are associated or that you experience when someone oversteps the boundary. And then finally, you have to practice. Always practice. Practice makes perfect. And if it's not perfect, it's habitual. It becomes a habit. Practice makes for habits. So, our three-part strategy: understanding the type of boundary, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, knowing how those relate to the boundary and when the boundary is crossed, as well as practicing. Well, that's it for today. I hope this is helpful. You all drop me a line and let me know if this is helpful to you. Leave comments in the comment section. You can do that on YouTube or even on the Facebook page. Do that. Let me know what you think, because that helps me to develop the content that is helpful for you as we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management, solution focused self care, and grateful living. I'm Marcyline Bailey. That's all for now. Take good care.